Hey y'all, welcome back. All right, this is a third segment to the story that is my life. All right, thank you for joining me. And as I promised, we're gonna jump into it, the relationship, the blossoming relationship between me and what will become my ex-wife. I'm gonna jump into it. I assume that you already have got yourself caught up to this point. You know exactly what I've already explained. All right. I get a job at this high-end Mexican restaurant. Honestly, it's not worth it as far as going to eat there because you're eating the typical Mexican food that you can find anywhere. Actually, Tex-Mex food, to be more specific, that you can find anywhere in San Antonio. It's just that at Sausalito, you're gonna have waiters that wear like white shirts and ties and stuff, so you're gonna pay double and triple for it. It's mainly for like people who want to celebrate or tourists to San Antonio, like who don't understand that you can go to any Mexican restaurant and get the same food for way less. All right, but this is when I wound up meeting back up again with my ex-wife. The last time that we even seen each other was way back in sixth grade. All right. And so at that point, I was about 22 or 23. I'm not very good with dates and stuff like that, as far as like knowing how old I was and stuff like that, but just about 22, 23. All right. Okay. Earlier, I'd explained that no matter what, I was gonna remember who Ashley was. Had I never seen her ever again, she'd still be here. I would still have memory of her, even though we were very, very loosely acquainted. Like growing up as kids throughout elementary and middle school, I maybe talked to Ashley like two, three times throughout our whole career. But I definitely remembered her and stuff. All right, and I want to explain, um, just how I came to re-remember who Ashley was. All right, but I do have vivid memories of her. For example, I remember her vividly being in the fifth grade play, elementary school, and I was also in the fifth grade play. It's called Aesop's Fables. All right, just to be real brief, I want to touch upon it. And I remember I played a part in which I was the hare in the fable, The Tortoise and the Hare. All right, I played the hare, in that, and it was a whole compilation of different Aesop's fables inside this fifth grade play that we wound up putting on. And my what will become my ex-wife, Ashley, she actually played a character that was loosely based on Amelia Earhart or something. She played like an eagle or something like that. Like, I don't know, it's a fable or whatever. But I do remember Ashley in that. Okay, so fast forward into when I was about 22, 23, working at this restaurant, Sausalito. I actually wound up uh, coming across Ashley again because she was working there, like as a hostess, and I was a waiter. Okay, and even then, I was still very much an introvert, and for the most part, I'm still kind of an introvert, but I'm actually more articulate, as you can see. I can talk a lot. All right, back then I just couldn't talk so well back then. All right. I wound up coming back across Ashley because we worked at the same place, but I gotta mention, I think it's important to mention that for the first 2 weeks, being that I am kind of an introvert, I didn't really talk to everybody who worked at Sausalito, not to great detail. And for the first 2 weeks, honestly, I thought Ashley, I didn't recognize her, right? Because we had grown up so much. She no longer had the bowl haircut. You know what I'm saying? And so I did not really recognize her. In fact, I thought she was a Mexican immigrant, to be honest with you. She's a white person. She's kind of mixed up with all these ethnicities, but basically, suffice it to say, she's a white person. But I thought she was like a Mexican immigrant, right? And the reason is because she didn't talk very much either. I didn't ever see her talking very much the first couple of weeks of us working together, her as a hostess and me as a waiter. I didn't recognize her because of the lack of the bowl haircut, and I thought she was kind of a Mexican immigrant because of the fact is that she didn't talk very much. All right, so I didn't hardly hear her voice very much just a little bit and stuff like that. And she actually happened to have a pretty strong tan. Like for being a white person, my ex-wife can get a very, very good tan, and I can get a pretty good tan as well if I'm out in the sun a lot. A very rich reddish brown. This is the color that she had when I met her, and so that's more of a reason why I thought she was like some sort of Mexican immigrant. It would make sense. That's just kind of what I thought. But it's something about her seemed kind of familiar to me. So over those first couple of weeks, I couldn't help but notice that not only was she kind of attractive, she's an attractive, well, not kind of attractive, she's very attractive, all right? A very attractive young girl, but there was something familiar about her. So I would see her, at work and stuff, and I didn't talk to her very much because I thought she was a Mexican immigrant. I thought she probably didn't speak much English, all right? And I don't speak much Spanish, so I didn't talk to her very much. And but there was something very familiar about her. I couldn't put my tongue on it for the first couple of weeks. I couldn't really figure it out. But at a certain point, I might have had like a small conversation, that small talk. I had kind of a small conversation or two with her while we were working together, and then it dawned on me. All right, I was like, I know this lady. All right. And it really, it dawned on me after a couple of weeks. It's like, I know this lady. She's not a Mexican immigrant. This lady's named Ashley, which, I mean, you could be Mexican and named Ashley, but this lady's named Ashley. There's something very familiar about her. Thing is, she had a different last name. She has a very rememberable last name. All right. And I'm not going to say what it is just for privacy reasons, but a very memorable last name. All right. And when I was working with her at Sausalito, she had a different last name. Right? And that's pretty significant. She had a different last name. All right. And so this was another reason why I didn't really recognize her. At first, I didn't immediately recognize who she was because she had a different last name. And I come to find out what it was. But like I said, a couple weeks into it, it dawned on me who she was. It's like, oh, I know this lady. All right, so even before I wound up asking her on a date, which I eventually wound up doing, I eventually wound up getting the courage to do that. All right, because she was attractive. There's something about her that just really, really caught my attention. And then I figured out who she was. I was like, hey, I'd known this lady. I knew her back in elementary school. I knew her back in high school. She has a different last name for some reason. And I didn't know why that was. And I come to find out why that was. And I'll explain that in a second. It was not because she was married before. That wasn't the case. But she did have a different last name. So I wound up asking her on a date. All right. I remember I asked her somewhat on a date the first time I did, and she kind of declined, or she kind of like managed her way out of it. All right. And, I just got a little bit dejected after that, I almost, kind of blew it off, all right? I was just like, oh, okay, all right, maybe she's not interested in me and stuff. She's kind of flirtatious, but maybe this is just kind of how she is, I don't know. And then she wound up asking me sort of on a date, all right? She asked me to go out with her and her friends, which I actually wound up saying no to. She asked me to go with her to a place, it's a club, it's a country style club, not a country club, but a country western style club called Cowboys here in San Antonio. And it's fairly well, if you're from San Antonio, you've heard of the club Cowboys. All right. And it was to go see some country western, music and stuff like that. And I actually declined because I didn't really want to. I didn't feel comfortable. I was like, I don't want to go hang out with you and your friends and stuff. It's not exactly what I had in mind. I kind of had a date in mind, like where it was just going to be us two. All right. And so I declined her offer, right? Thinking that it wasn't going to be much. It's just me hanging out with a group of people. And so it's like, I don't think she's very interested in me. But as it turned out, she kind of was. Through working over the next few weeks and months, we began having longer conversations, more flirtatious, if you will, giving me more encouragement to go ahead and ask her again on a date. All right, and I don't know how significant it is, but it's kind of significant. I remember when I asked her on a date again, because I was getting the idea that she was interested. Basically, I asked her, hey, we were having a little small conversation. I said, hey, how do you feel about smoking reefer? Right? Because at that time, and for years afterwards, pretty well a reefer smoker, right? So I was like, hey, how do you feel about smoking reefer? I was going out on a limb because I didn't know that if she did smoke reefer at all. I said, well, how do you feel about getting together with me and smoking some reefer or something, just hanging out? And she said, yes. Yeah. She was like, oh, yeah, I'll just smoke some reefer. Yeah, I'll smoke some reefer with you. And so I was like, oh, well, that's interesting. All right, come by my place and, smoke some reefer and stuff. And so she does come by my place. We set up a date, and she does come by. Right, this time it all does work out. She comes by my apartment, and mind you, nothing in my apartment, hardly anything. There was no furniture. It's my first apartment. I was just in it for a few weeks. I was making pretty decent money, but I didn't have enough money to buy furniture and stuff like that. So she comes into my apartment, and I swear, as weird as it sounds, I didn't have no furniture. Right, I had, as strange as it sounds, I don't know how significant it is, but I had a barbecue pit in my living room. I never used it, obviously, because you can't barbecue in your living room. But just that's to give you a feel of how strange I was. I was a strange guy. I had a barbecue pit in my living room. I had in the bedroom, there's a one bedroom apartment, I had a bed, and that's basically it and stuff. I had some other stuff, but nothing as far as furniture. So you can get a feel of what she was walking into. And still, she was still interested in me. I was like, all right. So we just spent that whole night on our first date. We pretty much went out to the patio area. I was on the second floor. Now, actually, no. If I remember correctly, I was on the third floor. It's a 3-story apartment building. And I was on the top floor. All right. We went out to my balcony, and we just sat there. Here's the thing. On my balcony, I had bought 2 chairs because I knew I was going to have a date, right? So I wanted her to be able to sit down. So I bought 2 chairs. All right. And we just straight up chilled on the back patio, smoked some reefer, and we talked. And we talked. And we talked the whole night. In fact, the date wound up ending as it was almost morning. As the sun was coming up, that's when we're like, I guess this is the end of the date, you got to go home and stuff like that. But that's just to give you a feel. We talked for hours, right? Brought up all sort of stuff. All right, basically told each other our own life stories and stuff, and got caught up from back when we were little kids, and we kind of like updated each other on how our lives were going. All right, and it's very significant. You're going to want to remember this is that at one point in the night, she explained to me why it is that she disappeared off the face of the earth back in 6th grade. All right, and get ready for this kind of, trigger warning, I guess, if you will. She explained to me that the reason that she fell off the earth back in 6th grade was that her father actually wound up sexually harassing her. All right, so I'll give you a moment with that. Sexually harassing her as she was in like 6th grade. All right, I'm not gonna get into too much detail, but trust me, it was inappropriate, the stuff that he did, and he didn't, it wasn't as bad as it could be and stuff like that. There was no intercourse or anything like that. All right, but he had sexually done a very weird thing, very inappropriate to Ashley and stuff, and she was like, oh man, what the heck? And she actually wound up going to some of her friends and being like, oh, this happened, well, what do I do? My father did this, what the heck is this? And so her friends basically had to tell her, look, you need to get out of that house. That's not acceptable at all, what he did. All right, you need to get out. And so that became a big whole deal. This is why she disappeared. Right, because that whole thing ensued. Her father actually wound up going to jail over it, prison for I don't know, a few years. He wound up getting out and stuff, but of course they were going to be estranged from then on out, right? And the thing is, she grew up as a daddy's girl, and she had a very kind of rough upbringing as far as being, just to be very brief, she would go from household to household and stuff. Her mother, her biological mother, wound up being, just to be real brief, a very irresponsible lady, right? Could not take care of Ashley as a young kid. So Ashley spent a lot of her childhood living with her father, right? And then subsequently her stepmother, because her father had got married to another lady. All right. So she spent a lot of time growing up with her father, and of course, as you can imagine, she was a daddy's girl. All right. She's pretty close to her dad up until the point where he finally starts sexually harassing her. I think it was only one occasion where it really became a problem, like when he did something that completely crossed the line. And so, as you can imagine, that was devastating for her. All right. And I think she had spent a little bit of time living with her grandparents, who technically she wasn't related to. They were her biological mother, if you can follow me. They were Ashley's biological mother's adopted parents. All right. That was the grandparents that Ashley had lived with a little bit during as part of her childhood, being passed around. All right, being passed around a little bit, lived with them, and actually, I think after her father had done the weird things that he had done, she wound up living, and this was in the Houston area. She moved and lived with her mother's adopted parents. All right, and just to let y'all know, her adopted parents, her adopted grandparents, she would refer to them as Mama and Papa, and she was very close to these people. So after the whole situation, her father goes to prison, right, over this stuff, convicted. Oh, and just to be very brief, Ashley didn't receive the brunt of the abuse. Just to let you know, and this was admitted by her older brother. Ashley had an older brother. Actually, she had a few different siblings, some half brothers. She had a half brother, a half sister, and stuff. It's a very mixed up, chaotic childhood. And she had a full blooded brother who had actually received even more abuse, and even just to be frank with you, sexual abuse from the father. All right, her father was real mixed up, real mixed up. All right, and so all sort of chaos ensues. Like I said, her father went to prison. Her older brother actually did a couple stints in psychiatric hospitals over it. All right, he had a very chaotic upbringing. Okay, and Ashley, this is the reason why she disappeared off the face of the earth in sixth grade. Right, and I never heard of her until we began working together. And like I said, she had actually brought up this whole situation and explained to me this during our first date. And I know a lot of people out there say that's kind of red flags that she would bring that up during y'all's first date. That's kind of weird. All right, even for if it did happen, just suffice it to say that it came up organically in our conversation. Right. And of course, I was blown away by that. I was like, oh my God, I wasn't familiar with anything like that. I didn't have no friends that were molested by their parents and stuff like that. But I just kind of took it with a grain of salt. Like, I was just like, oh man, that happened? Well, that sounds strange, man. That sounds wild and stuff like that. But I wasn't going to judge her off that and stuff like that. I was like, oh, okay. Oh man, that's wild. That's wild. And then we started talking about other stuff. You know what I'm saying? We didn't talk about that for very long. But we started talking about other stuff, and like I said, we talked until the sun came up. All right, and it was a very special night. All right, and at the end of the night, I walked her downstairs into her car, and I remember we had our first kiss. At the end of the date, it was very special. I found it very special. We wound up having more dates. All right, and we wound up, really enjoying each other's company. We both had a liking for reefer as well, so we got along pretty well. And I want to explain this part. We, after not too long, we made it official, just to say that I made it official. After a few dates, maybe five or six dates, something like that, I wound up finally asking her, hey, would you be my girlfriend? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, the sequence of things was kind of mixed up with us. very much so. And it was on about the fifth or the sixth day that I actually asked her, and it was a night that we'd spent the night together, and there was no relationship. There was no relations had during these first number of dates. All right, just to be brief with y'all. There's no relations had, and even when we spent the night together on the day that I asked her to be the night that I asked her to be my girlfriend, there was no relations had on that night. We actually spent the night together though, and we slept in the same bed. All right, as weird as that is, we just slept in the same bed and passed out and stuff. We talked until we just couldn't talk anymore. Passed out on the bed and stuff, and Ashley made it very clear, hey, we're gonna sleep in the same bed. We're gonna pass out on this bed right quick, but there's not gonna be any relations had. All right, buddy. Know that for a fact. And I said, oh, okay, all right. I'm tired as hell. Let's pass out. I'm not gonna try to have relations with you. Don't you worry about that. And so we didn't. But I still remember that night pretty vividly. And that was the night that I asked her to be my girlfriend. And after that, we started developing a relationship, and it was blossoming. All right, and it was very refreshing to me. I didn't bring it up earlier in the story, but I feel it's significant to bring up that I had two or three girlfriends, depending on how you see it, throughout my school career and my high school career. I'd had like, two or three girlfriends, depending on your definition, all right? But only one significant girlfriend, all right? Up until Ashley, I had only one significant girlfriend. I guess I'll mention her name. Her name's Lacey, all right? And this girl, we had an off and on relationship for sure, all right? It was a love-hate, it was a roller coaster, me and Lacey. I'm here to tell you, a roller coaster. Either we were passionate, madly, into each other, or we couldn't stand each other. All right, and there was hardly any in between and stuff with our on and off relationship during the latter years of my high school career and a little bit into my college year. We were, fraternizing with each other and stuff like that. But like I said, it was a roller coaster, and that's what I was used to. And that's actually why I can tell you today that redheads are wild, bro. Redhead, they're not nothing to play with. And anybody who's had experience with a redhead knows exactly what I'm talking about. All right. And trust me, it was no different with Lacey. All right. Passionate, wild, and stuff like that. I got to let you know. I mean, I don't know how significant it is, but me and Lacey, we didn't have relations for the first 5, 6 months that we were together. All right. Just to give you a feel. It wasn't that Lacey was like some sort of slut running around. And you know what I'm saying? That wasn't the case. There was a long time that it built up until we actually did have relations. Like I said, about 5 or 6 months. But when we finally did have relations, oh man, did we enjoy it. Oh man. And this is like my junior year in high school. Oh man, did we enjoy it like you wouldn't believe, all right? We did it a lot, all right, just to let you know. And there's no qualms with me about doing it and stuff. And apparently she didn't have no qualms with doing it and stuff. We did it a lot. All right. And it was either we were just hitting it off or we were just at each other's throats. And that was our relationship for that 2, 3 years and stuff like that. All right. And so I wanted to tell you about that whole rocky, that whole love hate type relationship. I think that was pretty significant because when it came to me and Ashley, by that time I was sick and tired of any sort of drama, dude. I didn't want any part of any drama from a girl and stuff. Like if I was gonna date Ashley and stuff like that, for it to work out, there had to be zero drama. I was not even gonna deal with that. All right, and that actually turned out to be the case. All right, I don't even remember how long, but I think just about for the first 6 months that me and Ashley were in a relationship together, we never so much as had an argument about anything, all right? It was smooth sailing. And for me, that was so dang refreshing. Oh man, was I grateful for that. To have a girl in my life who digs me and I dig her and stuff, and we're not at each other's throats all the time. Oh man, that was a breath of fresh air for me. I really, really, really enjoyed that. All right, and so I don't know if it's like 2 or 3 months into our relationship. This is when I started to push the envelope, if you will. All right. And I'm going to get a little bit of detailed, not too detailed, but this is when I started being like, hey, you want to, you know what I'm saying? You want to get naked and stuff? Is that what you want to do? And basically, I was successful with it. All right. Just let you know. All right. I propositioned the idea. She said, yeah, let's do this. Let's do that. And so we did. All right. And I'm not going to go into detail about the first time, although I could. I remember it vividly. It did not work out so well. All right. I'm going to leave it at that. All right. Let's just say there was no ending to that. All right. I stopped midway. I don't want to get it's not, I don't want to get too detailed, but it is kind of important. I kind of stopped midway and I said, you know what? Maybe let's try again later. Okay. And we stopped mid session. And I got up and I was like, I don't think it's working out. And I don't want to get too detailed about it, but I had my reasons for like, I don't. All right. And it wasn't nothing weird. Nothing about her father came up, just so that you know, that wasn't the reason. All right. It's just that I wasn't feeling the chemistry. We didn't have the chemistry going there. All right. And I remember that night thinking to myself, man, you know, something's weird here, because obviously, you know, if you start, you're gonna want to finish, and that didn't happen. And so I was like, you know, something's weird. I don't know what this is. And I was like, you know, maybe this isn't gonna work out. All right, being a young man in his 20s, I was thinking to myself, you know, maybe this isn't going to work out. With the stuff between me and Ashley, it's been going great. It's been going smooth sailing. We're not arguing about nothing. And we get along very great and stuff like that. But the spark, if you know what I mean, the spark wasn't there. You know, and I was pretty concerned by it. And I thought to myself, you know, specifically on that evening, I didn't kick her out or anything. This is in my apartment, by the way. I didn't kick her out. I was like, you know, maybe we'll try this again later, something like that. In the meantime, you know, let's just go to sleep. All right. As you can imagine, she was pretty alarmed by that whole thing too. She was like, oh, and it was very awkward. It was very awkward. All right. And in my head, I'm thinking, you know, let's just go to sleep and not think about this right now. But in my head, I was like, you know, this is probably not going to go nowhere, and we're probably done. Okay. But I didn't tell her that, right? So reluctantly, I wound up, you know, actually going and having more dates with her. I didn't break up with her. Right? I thought that maybe I would and stuff, but I just didn't. I was like, you know what? I'm going to give her another chance. I can feel that we don't have that romantic chemistry. That's not really happening very much, but I really like Ashley and stuff. We get along very well, so let's just go on some more dates and stuff like that. And she was very, very well interested in going on more dates and stuff to continue being girlfriend and boyfriend. All right, and so that's what we did. And for the next weeks and months, you know, we eventually tried again. You know, had some more sessions, if you will, over the next, you know, couple of months. And it did wind up, you know, we wound up having complete sessions, if you will. All right. And even then, it's just like, okay, you know, it's pretty good. It's nothing like Lacey. All right. Nothing like it. And as people who had relations with redheads know, those are amazing sessions, right? And so I couldn't help but notice the difference. I was like, dude, there's not the spark here the same way, but we get along so very well, so I might as well just, you know, keep this going and stuff, I guess. And I would be back and forth, like, you know, maybe this ain't working out, or maybe it is and stuff. I wouldn't be telling her that, but in my head, I'd be like, I don't know if I'm gonna keep doing this. I don't know. But, you know, over the next, I don't know, 3 or 4 months, we still had very fun times together. All right, and I appreciated that a lot. I really did. And about 3 or 4 months into it, I couldn't help but notice that, in the living situation that she was actually with some roommates. She lived in a house that was way off, further down 1604 towards the west. I'm sure most of y'all ain't familiar, but it's more the 1604 Petrenko area, which was just starting to get developed out there and stuff. And she's living in a house with some roommates. And she's mentioning how it wasn't really going so perfectly and stuff like that. And she had her doubts about, how long she could actually live there because they were kind of butting heads and stuff like that. And being the kind of young, naive guy I was, it's probably not a good idea. I can tell you that right now. It's probably not a good idea to move in a girlfriend, to have living girlfriends, but that's a whole different other video. It wasn't a good idea, but I asked her, I was like, hey, you're butting heads with your roommates and stuff like that. Roommates who I had met, by the way, and I found them to be quite awkward. I was like, how about this? How about you move in with me? All right, you want to think about it? And she thought about that for a little while. And then eventually, she agreed. She's like, oh, okay, we'll move in. And she did. She moved into my apartment with me. And that was interesting. That was pretty interesting times that we had with each other. Like I said, the romantic, the whole sexual spark and everything, it wasn't too much of that. We would do that sometimes, but it wasn't like over the top or anything like that. Right? We weren't like bunny rabbits or anything like that. We just got along very well. All right. But, she moved in, and for months and months while she was living there with me, still no arguments, nothing, dude. We got along perfectly. All right. And I was like, I started to wrap my head around. I was like, it's not everything that it could be, but it's very comfortable, and I like this. And our relationship just began to blossom more and more. And real briefly, I want to mention that I actually wound up quitting Sausalito, and it's totally it's not having anything to do with me and Ashley, but I wound up quitting Sausalito because of a kind of intense altercation that I had with one of the managers over there. Suffice it to say, dude, I was an introvert and everything like that, but I was a wonderful waiter, and I've always been very wonderful at that sort of thing. As far as hospitality goes, dude, you would love me to be your waiter because I'm gonna take care of you. I'm gonna take care of you so good, dude. You would love it. Let me tell you something. Your drink will never go empty, dude. I will have your drink. I will have your orders. I did a little waiting over at my dad's restaurant, so I had some experience in it. All right, I'll have your order exactly how you need it and stuff. I'll take this and that table and this table and that table. Y'all gonna be straight, dude. You're not even gonna have to talk very much. I'll have your drinks refilled, everything. I was getting pretty dang good tips. I was a good waiter. I'm here to tell you. But a dramatic situation happened between me and a manager. It was a male manager, and we got into a conflict and stuff, and it got kind of heated, and I wound up actually quitting from Sausalito with Ashley actually living at my place. Or actually, I think this might have been right before she started living at my place. All right before that, I quit from Sausalito, and I was like, dang, I scrambled to get another job, and I was able to get another job through a friend at the Sausalito restaurant. They said, hey, I know these people at this different Mexican restaurant, in which I'm pretty sure I can get you a job there. And it was a place called Gringos, actually, which is kind of it's funny that it's called Gringos, but it was a Tex-Mex restaurant. It was very much a Mexican restaurant. And that place wound up closing up. Here's the thing. Gringos wasn't doing very good business at that point, and they were on the verge of closing, actually. All right. And it was a couple months into me working there that they wound up closing completely. But while I was working at Gringos, I noticed that, oh man, this ain't paying the bills just like Sausalito would. So I wound up getting a second job. And for a while there, I had two jobs, working at Gringos and working at Walmart as well overnight and stuff, dude. I was working and working, dude. Yeah, I was struggling to make sure that I could pay rent on my apartment. At this point, I had Ashley living with me, but I wasn't asking her for rent money at all. And just to be real brief, the reason why I didn't ask her for rent money is because, she was working as a hostess at Sausalito. Believe it or not, she didn't get paid very good money anyways. But she also had aspirations, and I knew very well that she had aspirations to become an EMT. And they get paid fairly decently. The thing is, they should get paid a lot more. That's a whole different other video that we could do. But she got paid pretty decently as an EMT. The thing is, she had to go through a period of schooling. And that particular schooling that she had to take to become an EMT took about a year or something like that. So while she was going to school to become an EMT and she was working a little bit at Sausalito as a hostess, she wasn't making very much money. I was perfectly fine in having her live at the apartment and not paying rent and stuff like that. And I was perfectly fine supporting her as she was going through school to become an EMT. I had no problem with that. All right. But I was still struggling to pay the dang bills. All right. This is why I had 2 jobs and stuff. And Gringos wound up closing up. But before they actually closed up, I had actually became fired from Gringos. And long story short, the reason I was fired from Gringos is they didn't particularly like my second job. And the fact is sometimes I had to leave early, like maybe 30 minutes early from work so that I could get to my second job at Walmart. All right. And they didn't particularly like that. This is why they wound up letting me go, which was, it was kind of crippling that they did that, but I was saving a little bit of money working at Walmart. It was all right pay and stuff. So I wound up working at Walmart, and eventually I had to get a second job somewhere else working at Walmart, and I wound up getting another job working for El Nino, actually. My man, Andrew El Nino Trevino, he was actually working at a Chinese food restaurant. I guess I'm not going to bother saying the name, but he was a manager there, and he's like, bro, if you need a job, I'll get you a job. It's sort of as a waiter. You're a server, basically. You don't take people's orders, but you bring them out their food, all right? And you're the only guy. Like, just to explain briefly, the way that restaurant worked out is that there's a whole mess of tables, there's a whole dining room, and one server. Okay, you don't take the orders. They order at the front, and then they go sit down, and you're gonna bring out their orders, all right, to a whole dining room, and you're the only server, all right. So every tips, lunch was especially good to work there because the whole dining room would be packed full of people who love Chinese food. All right. And so although every table might leave you like $1, maybe $2, sometimes even $5 and stuff like that, that's really low as far as tips go. But when you're doing the whole dining room, that adds up. That adds up pretty quick. And so I was actually making pretty dang decent money doing that. And that was a wonderful thing. And I was starting to get stuff to come together, like I was starting to pay bills and get back on top of things at that point. And that's pretty good. The thing is, I wound up later on down the line having to skip from that job to another job. The thing is, I got fired from that job, having a problem with the manager. And I'm not talking about Andrew El Nino. I had a problem with a different manager, and we got into it and stuff. He wound up firing me. And that's a whole story in and of itself. I'm not going to explain how it was pretty much the manager's fault, to be honest with you. As you can imagine, I was making good money. I did not want to leave that job, but he really was kind of an asshole, all right? And he was messing up my money, to be honest with you. He made it a habit of messing up my money, all right? And I really did not have the temper for that, all right? And we wound up butting heads real hard constantly for a while until it kind of boiled over at a certain point, and I wound up having to go from that job to another job and stuff like that. And it's wild, dude. I've had so many jobs over my working career. I can't even count how many. I've had a lot. All right. But back to me and Ashley. It was working out pretty decently between me and Ashley. As much as I had to work, as much as she was off doing school and working a job, we saw each other sometimes. We lived together in an apartment, but we saw each other like occasionally. All right. And when we did see each other, we had a pretty decent relationship with each other and stuff. We had a pretty good understanding with each other. And I really enjoyed it. I really did. So we carried on this way in that apartment. We carried on doing what we were doing, the types of things that we were doing. And we were just carrying on, living our lives together and trying to get stuff done, right? Let's fast forward to a significant part before I had to end this video because we're coming up on the end of my memory on the phone. So, um, okay, stuff's going along pretty good. We have a pretty decent chemistry with each other and stuff. And actually, it was on a Thanksgiving, all right? I remember this clearly. I took Ashley to go to my mom's house and they were having something of a Thanksgiving. I think we went back and forth between like, her step parents' house. And this is the reason why she had a different last name. I forgot to mention because obviously, that whole situation, she wound up getting a different last name. All right. We wound up going to her step parents' house and we wound up going to actually my mom's house first. In which, while we're doing these Thanksgiving festivities, I guess it's the males were just pretty much sitting around watching like football or something, and okay, my older brother's baby mama at that time. I don't think they were married. My older brother's baby mama and Ashley, they were kind of doing their thing. They're kind of, almost the same age and stuff. They're off doing their own thing. Me and my brothers are not really paying them any mind. They're off doing their own thing. All right. They come back and they're like all kind of giddy and nervous around us. All right. The reason why is, okay, my older brother, his baby mama, she was kind of nervous that she was pregnant again. She thought that maybe she was pregnant again. All right. And come to find out, she took the test and she wasn't. It turned out, no, she wasn't. All right. But Ashley kind of, she had a sneaky suspicion and she was like, dude, if you're taking a test, I might as well take the test as well. Yeah, I might as well and stuff. And so she took the test and come to find out, yeah, she was pregnant. All right, with my daughter. That's what I found out on a Thanksgiving. She came in the room and she kind of broke it to me. She didn't tell my mom who's in that house as well. She told me. She's like, look, I just took the test and positive. And I took in the news and I was like, oh man. That's pretty much my reaction. I was like, oh man. And after a few minutes I was like, this is wonderful. Okay. Let's do this. And we did. All right. And it was actually, like 2-3 months before I wound up telling my mom, hey, look, Ashley's pregnant. All right, because I was kind of nervous to tell her and stuff. My dad wound up finding out, somebody told him, stuff like that. Everybody was nervous. Didn't nobody want to tell my mom because my mom's kind of a temperamental person, and so nobody wanted to tell her. And it took me a couple months before I wound up telling her, hey, look, Ashley's pregnant. And, for the most part, my mom kind of took it fairly well. All right. And so that's how it began. All right. That's when I first found out, okay, I'm about to have a baby. And it was like a number of months after that when I found out that the baby is going to be a girl. All right. We went and got a sonogram done and they found out, hey, this is a girl that's in the belly right now. Okay. And I was like, oh, okay, all right. And I had 3 nieces. I was kind of, in a sense, I was like, I hope, I wonder if I have a boy and stuff like that. But when they told me, hey, it's a girl in the belly, okay, you're going to have a daughter, I wasn't disappointed at all. I was like, oh, okay, that's what it's going to be. All right. And still very much excited about it. All right. My memory's going to run out right now. So I'll see y'all in the 4th segment. You already know me and my girlfriend, we're about to have a baby. She's pregnant. Very exciting times. All right. So we'll get into where everything goes wrong probably in the next segment. All right. So stay tuned and I appreciate you. I'll holler at y'all.